I'm Steve Johnson. I've been teaching at Montclair State about a year and a half, but before that I've been a reporter and an editor and a TV reporter and a print reporter and a web reporter for 35 years. So I've been on the other side of the business most of the time. I teach multimedia and online journalism at Montclair State. I want to get a feel for everybody, though, as to what you're going to use this for, so I know exactly what to do with it. When I talked to Heather early on, we said let's emphasize video more than photos, because that's probably something you may be a little more reluctant to do than photos, but we can talk about both, and a lot of the principles are the same. It's just obviously you can't do the same thing with photos that you can with video. So just really quickly, what are you looking to get out of this? Who you are and
Hi, my name is Richard Arriaga. I'm actually accompanying her, and I'm just curious.
Good, okay.
So.
I'm Josanna Gonzalez. I'm interested in photography, and I'm trying to go into photojournalism, but I don't know how to.
Exactly. What kind of camera do you have?
I just got the starter was it 3000 or
3000.
Yeah, okay.
19 3000.
Okay, and you have a smartphone?
I'm sorry.
You have a smartphone?
Oh yes.
Okay, which Android?
iPhone. I have both.
Okay.
I'm Mark Werman. I'm here for the same thing a friend did, just hang out, get some information.
Good, okay. What kind of camera do you have?
Sony Alpha NX3.
Okay, and smartphone?
Yeah, Android platform.
Smartphone?
No.
Okay, yep.
Hi, I'm Joan Leader. I am here to find a way to promote a new race series and with the Porsche Cayman Nation. So I've been taking photographs with a Nikon D5000 and a 400 millimeter signal lens.
Right.
And I want to find a way to use my iPhone for some of the video. I've been trying and playing, but I'd like to see a
Good,
little
okay.
bit.
Jerry Squano. I live local, and I thought I wanted to learn how to use the video to capture cool shots of what goes on in local government so people can see what goes on.
Yeah,
David Chaps. I do a little sports journalism, reporting, getting started with that, but really the sky's the limit. I have an interest in business journalism. Now I was at here to learn. I was at the last conference, I'll call it, at Ocean County College, and photojournalism has always been on the back burner for me, so I want to get up to speed. Now I just got an iPad mini. I want to know if that's as good, if it'll take as good a picture as I don't have an iPhone. I don't really have anything else. I have a Olympus underwater camera and an iPod Touch.
This is good for you to figure out everything.
Hi, Tracy Jordan.
I picked the workshop, the area of my greatest weakness to start with. No phone, no camera, no nothing, so I'm going to open page.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I'm Betsy Allen. I have an iPhone and a Nikon D5000 as well.
Oh, okay.
Susan Pig, NJ Arts News. We do short form video stories for television news, and so the videographers are always doing television quality, but I'd like to kind of occasionally back up maybe by having my own camera, so here to learn.
Okay. All over the place, fair amount here. We'll talk a little bit about gear, but honestly, obviously I can't cover all the gear between iPhones and Android phones and Nikons and Canons and everything else like that. I'll be glad to talk to you though afterwards, or give you my email address or phone number. We can talk after this too. If you've got specific questions about specific gear, I can try to help with that. Steve Stern is here videotaping this, and he's not going to be here for the other session, so we're fortunate because we can kind of point out the difference as to how much you get for your money. I'm going to show you some stuff that is basically, let's use your iPhone to do this and push it as far as you can with your iPhone. Next step up, you may have a mid-level consumer camera. Canon has this line that's their T3, 4, 5, 6, I guess there's a T2. Every year they upgrade it by one number and have that. The new one today with a couple of lenses is probably about $1,200. This one is this is actually a T4, but the T3 we use for school, it's now about $450 there with a lens. So the advice on that always is they have not added a new feature in some time that's a make or break feature there. Don't buy this year's model. Go back a couple of years and you'll get a much better value for your money there. The T4 has a touch screen. All right, I mean, to me, if you're accustomed to using without a touch screen and you don't need the touch screen for much of anything, and if you're switching gears, that's not a big deal. It's a little better autofocus, but autofocus is not good anyway. The audio is a little better, but not earth shaking. And so if you go back, I've got a T2 I use a lot. The lenses are interchangeable, so whichever one you buy, you can switch the lenses back and forth, which is great. But this shoots stills and videos, and we'll talk a little bit about the advantage of this versus an iPhone. So let's go through a little bit of this here. The most important thing, with all of this is the why are you doing this? What are you grabbing? And a lot of you are doing city council meetings and stuff like that, and you always got to ask yourself, why am I doing video? I work with a lot of TV people, and of course they do TV, and they don't quite get it. It's like, well, obviously we do it this way. It's television. It's like, yeah, that's the only way you can do it. The only way you can tell a story is through television, because you're on television, and you can't run text on television. You could do that Star Wars, kind of scroll into infinity there of here's what happened at the city council meeting, and you can scroll the text across the screen. But it's like, no, they can't do that. They have to do it in real time. It takes someone 60 seconds to talk 60 seconds. You can't boil it down. In print, you can summarize what somebody says in 60 seconds in a couple of sentences. You can read it in 2 seconds, which is why print's great, for what it does. And that's why if you're doing stuff for the web, and most of you guys are doing stuff for the web, it's like, oh, completely different. I don't have to do this story on TV. If I've got the head of the Federal Reserve testifying to Congress about what he's going to do about interest rates, and the whole stock market's going to move depending on it, do I want to listen to his entire hour speech to figure out what he said? Of course not. I want to read the print piece, and in the lead paragraph, it'll tell me what's important so I can quickly buy or sell my stock, right? If you want to look at the speech, well, okay, but it's not a very good way to get that information. In the same way what happened at the city council meeting. Most of the time, print is going to be your best way to do it, right? Because you can very quickly say, here's what happened. If you have to try to get, the back and forth, the debate, the motions, the sidetracks, the interruptions that goes in a council meeting, that in 30 minutes they decide whether to give somebody a contract to put artificial turf on the softball field, the football field, it's all over the place. The reality of meetings is all over the place. And you can show the whole 30 minutes and people can watch it, and that's fine, but most people won't. Most people want you to summarize it for them. That's what they want you to be there for. They don't want to go to the council meeting, they want you to go, and they want you to summarize it. So you got to always think about what it is you're doing. I used to run most of the patch sites in the state. We can talk for a long time about patch, but there's about 85 now, but a whole bunch of them in the early days we're trying to figure out what to do locally. And I think it was Milburn, the chief financial officer for the town, made a presentation, and he had a PowerPoint presentation, and he was telling everybody in town about the budget, why they needed to pass a bond issue for their budget. And in 5 minutes, he summarized it going through his PowerPoint. We posted that 5 minutes. It was like the most succinct summary. This was, the guy that's in charge of the budget, so you get some idea, is he an idiot or not? Here's his PowerPoint, and just watch it. This is why he says you should do it there. Now, this wasn't a really contentious issue. It wasn't really hotly contested. We didn't feel like we had to have there was no other side. There was nobody objecting it and pushing back. But the idea was, that was a great video. He had his PowerPoint, he had all of his slides, he had his presentations, and then, of course, guess what? We also said, can you, on your flash drive, copy your PowerPoint over for us so we can post that on the web as well. So people that cared about it could say, oh, let's look at his numbers. And so when you're thinking about all this, one of the things that will kind of slip through the cracks is information you will get that people have in these meetings, that these little flash drives can be really great. This one's, I think Debbie's giving them out today for free. There's 1 gigabyte. You can buy the ones, there's no difference whatsoever between those and the 16 gigabytes. except I think these are like $15 there. Huge amount of text. This one will hold several thousand pages of text. Won't hold a huge amount of video, but a fair amount there, and this is free. Just having those on your keychain or in your pocket. You know, somebody's making a presentation at the city council meeting, and you walk up and say, could you just copy that? In fact, that's what Steve did before I started on this. He said, can you copy that over for me so he can edit it into his piece? It's a really good little technique just to remember, because that's how you're getting all this complicated data that you want to grab from somebody. You know, the developers of the new proposed mall downtown, and they have this long presentation. You know, you can grab it, post it on your website, and the entire town can go through the presentation themselves, which is great. So, first point is going to be, what is it that we are trying to do? You know, what are the key things? What to shoot, but then where to stand to shoot it, how to shoot it, and then this stuff here, I can't really show every single person every little way to do this. I'll show you just one of the editing systems, Apple's iMovie system, which is free. We'll talk a little bit about the editing systems, but you know, basically in terms of editing video, this is what you're looking at. You got to get it into your computer. That's generally not that hard. You've got to actually edit it, and that just means you select what you want. And for most of the stuff you're doing, you can think of just one clip. It's the mayor talking, let's just say. The mayor talking for 3 minutes. And at first the mayor's asking you, you know, what are you, who are you? Oh, okay, you're so-and-so, where do you live? You know, you're going back and forth, you're chatting. And it's like, she finally says, okay, so what do you want to ask, you know? And you say, okay, let me ask you, why are we raising taxes this year? Or something, you know. You edit, she talks for 2 or 3 minutes, you know. You now decide to edit that. You want to get rid of all the stuff in the beginning, right? The back and forth. So you just got to trim the top of the first part of it. Just get rid of all of it. And it's like a word processor. It's exactly the same process. The stuff you don't want in a word processor, you drag down, you select it, you delete. It's gone, you know. You still got your original clip. It doesn't disappear forever. The same way at the end of it. At the end of it, you know, she may say, how'd I do? Did that make sense? You know, you can decide to leave that in if you want to, you know, because that's the mayor's personality, or you can delete it. Or in the middle of it, you know, her cell phone may ring, and she says, hang on a sec, we turn this off. She turns it off. You may want to edit that out, you know. If you're more serious and professional about this, in interviewing her, you are going to think about what is she saying, and is she saying it in a concise form. And TV news people do this all the time. They ask the question again and again in a slightly different form because people think out loud. When you first ask the mayor that question, she'll give you an answer, but she's kind of thinking as she says it. The second time you ask it, she now knows what she wants to say and the point she wants to make, and she'll be more concise. So often TV people they have this line. So okay though, in 15 seconds, how would you say it? You just ask somebody, you know, they give this 3-minute answer, they say, but if you really had to just summarize it in 10 seconds, what's your main point? And they'll do it. They'll give you 10 seconds. We have to have this tax increase because with the bad economy, we're not getting revenue because nobody's selling anything in our town. Oh, okay. That's her key point. Not this long-winded thing about ratables and percentages and everything else like that. So interviewing technique also, remembering to ask a question. And if you're not getting the answer you want, just say, you know, I'm still not understanding though. Why do we need to do this? I've asked the question a second time, you know. And then, okay, but oh boy, it's complicated. If you had to summarize it in 10 seconds, how would you do it? That's what TV people do all the time. That's how they get those short little sound bites that start out as 5 or 6 minute things, and you shorten it and you shorten it. So that's a little interview tip. But so you edit the video, you add an ID at the bottom. That's not hard to do particularly. There's normally a little thing, a little T for text. You click it, and it shows you where it goes at the bottom. You type the name of the person. You don't have to have that. You really don't. You think, well, but TV guys have it. And that's because they're TV. You're a website, and your website, it says, we spoke to Mayor so-and-so after Thursday night's council meeting and asked her about why we're raising taxes, right? That's already in there. It's already in the text. The person already knows it. In television, the anchor says, you know, a big controversy about Mayor Bloomberg and the city council about raising the budget. There, you know, so-and-so's live, and eventually they get to the council meeting and the mayor, and if you've just walked into the room and the TV's just on, You know, you're like, what is this about? And the lower third says, Mayor Bloomberg on tax increase. Because with television, they can't assume you've heard the previous 60 seconds. On the web, if they played your video, they had to go to the page, they had to look at the headline, and then they go, oh, what's this video about? And they have to play it and want to listen to it. So you don't have to have those lower thirds. It's fun, it's nice, you know. But you're going to identify them. You're going to say, right, we talked to Mayor so-and-so in your text. Click here to play the video. So don't, if you are having trouble with it, don't worry about it. You know, it's not an unnecessary thing at all. The great thing about the web is you're grabbing stuff. It's not these video packages. It's not television. You know, forget everything you've seen on television. You're just looking to have the mayor on the record, you know, saying, in your campaign for re-election, you said, I will not raise taxes. Now you are proposing raising 3 different fees. Is this not the same as raising taxes? You know? And you want to get them on the record for that. That's all you want to soundbite, 60 seconds. You know, it's not a package. You don't have to stand in front of the camera with a microphone. You don't have to do any of that. It's web video. It's the raw stuff. It's the stupid cat video, right? You know, that's what we have is those real things. So what do you shoot? This is kind of the obvious one. I mean, obviously things happening, you know, something that's happening that you're kind of going, oh, okay, fires definitely. Car wreck? Well, I don't know. A still photo may be perfectly good for a car wreck, right? I mean, what are you going to do with the video? Nothing's moving. It's just sitting there. You know, you turn on the video camera, it's okay, but 5 still photos versus a video. The video you can walk around, but you can do the same thing with still photos. So a car wreck, maybe not. Fires, yeah, because you've always got the flames. And, you know, TV news worships that stuff. But the other kind of stuff that video is great for. Something happening, sports, you know, sports is obvious. Sports is you know, there's always fun stuff there with sports. Always good to do. But it's also other stuff around town, you know. People are doing work on a construction site. There's a crane, they're putting a new air conditioner on the roof of the bank, and the main street through town is shut down for an afternoon, right? And you've got the crane picking up the air conditioner and putting it on the top of the bank. And everybody goes, wow, did you see that? Wow, they blocked off Main Street? Yeah, they had this big crane and it lifted this huge thing up to the top of the building. Then it took them 10 minutes to do it. That kind of stuff. Something happened, you know. Could be a ribbon cutting and everybody smiles, you know. But you're thinking for a moment that's interesting, that people kind of go, oh, I want to be there. So far, you know, city council meeting doesn't necessarily work for that. But, and this is the other kind of stuff, obviously. Ceremonies, parades, festivals, stuff where there's stuff going on, you know, where you can have that. So think a little bit about what makes good video. And there's not a lot of this stuff. In the average town, in the average week, there's not a huge amount of stuff. It's like, what happened in town this week? You know, everybody kind of went about their business. There was some sports stuff. There were a few meetings. There's not a lot of stuff going on. But you can think about that a little bit. You know, is somebody repairing something at an intersection? Are they fixing potholes and you want to do a story on potholes and there's the crew out there filling in the potholes and you want to raise the question about, yeah, but what about all the other streets that haven't been paved? Or are they wasting money on this? Or is the county not fixing their roads and the city's fixing theirs, or vice versa? You know, and you got video that you want to show of people, you know, doing the work. How to. Now this is one that's more interesting than you may not think about. One of the most interesting things you can do if you're covering local stuff is to profile people. You know, someone who's actually an activist doing something there. You know, they're in your community teaching folks how to do something. You know, to a degree, what we're doing here this morning, what Steve is taping, is like, oh, okay, we're doing a how-to session there. I've had people do things like the guy at the pizza parlor saying, how do you make a pizza? And actually, he was surprisingly good about, he says, you know, if you can throw it in the air, that's great, but otherwise you just grab the edge of it and let it kind of fall, and you'll stretch it that way as it turns. If you keep pulling up the edge, it'll get wider and wider, you know. And he said, you know, you always put the sauce in the middle and move it out. It was like he had I learned something, you know. I thought I knew how to make a pizza, and he was like, no, you don't. You know, he said, here's the way you do it there to make it work. As to how I get these great pizzas everybody takes for granted, and all the kids I hire for the summer don't know what they're doing, and I have to show them how to do it there. You know, you got somebody that's starting a restaurant, you got somebody that's a caterer, somebody doing something interesting in the town. It may be that they're planting stuff or encouraging people to plant trees because they think the town could use more trees, and everybody's encouraged to do that, and they show you how to plant a tree. How-to videos can be really, really good. They're fairly straightforward. I mean, it's, you kind of understand how to do it. It's like, oh, what do I do first? And obviously, if you ever tried to show somebody how to tie a tie, you can't do that in print, right? I mean, how would you writing it out in print? It's like, that's hard. And the video, except for the fact it'd be backwards, the video pretty well does it. The same way a lot of kind of cooking stuff, you could go to the high school and ask the golf coach, how do you hit with a driver? There's things when you think about it a little bit. Someone that's a local artist, a painter, and the like, how do you do this? You can also ask the public works guys, they may not let you do it, sometimes they will. Can I ride with you with the snowplow? How do you do some of that stuff? And ask them why they always plow people's driveways then after they just dig them out there, can't they do a better job of it? And they'll tell you, pile up your snow, whichever direction we're coming in, pile up your snow on that side of the driveway. You pile it up on this side, we're going to plow it in, pile it up on that way, and we won't do it. But how-to stuff. And then this. If there's any reason to use video, this is where many of you folks are active in your community. If I profile you in print, I'll say you're a concerned citizen, I'll say you're dedicated, and it's like, but I can't capture your personality. The adjectives are really hard. What's Chris Christie like? You can call him all kinds of names, but if you see a Chris Christie in action clip, do you need me to describe him if you see him in action, right? I don't need to describe his build, his jowls, the way he uses his hands all the time. You show him for 5 minutes going off on somebody in a meeting, and that's why video, incredible. Video is just incredible. You got some wacky guy running for some office, it's hard to say that he's wacky, right? It's really hard. You don't want to say that. You kind of go, well, several members of the council are kind of wacky, and they got elected, But put that person in front of a camera and let them talk for a few minutes. Politics is one of the best things, campaigns, to use video. I remember there was a kid running for the mayor of Bayonne, and he was like 18 or 19, whatever the minimum age was. And he sounded pretty good on paper. And we got him on video for a couple of minutes talking about why he wanted to be mayor. And it was just like, boy, you're a kid. You just don't have the depth. This was a lark, this was fun. The way he said something, the way he was smiling at the time, it was just like, nah, I'm just not going to take you seriously there, People that are city council candidates, the kind of stuff, or school board candidates, ask them, why do you care about schools? And that, you can tell in their voice, are they serious? Do you really feel like this is something they want on their resume because they want to run for mayor? Or this is somebody that I'm going to trust. I may not agree with all their positions, but they really do care about kids in schools. They're committed to this kind of stuff. Video is great for that. Challengers to the mayor, and you ask them, how would you cut the city budget? I saw New Canaan, Connecticut, a couple clips like that, and the woman that was a challenger was just so informed and thoughtful, knew it, and convinced you, this wasn't somebody who had written a position paper for her. She knew what she was talking about. She had very definite thoughts, and the video conveyed it. So if there's one thing I would encourage you to think about doing, with local folks, it's candidates for office. Who has talked to their city council candidates, or school board candidates, or state assembly candidates. It's a great thing to shoot, and you capture the personality, and if people are total idiots, give them 2 minutes on video, and they generally will come off as total idiots. But here's also, kids. Kids always work. You can't lose with kids for video. They always have cute things to say. I'm probably the only person in here old enough to remember Art Linkletter's Kids Say the Darndest Things. He used to interview kids and say, why do your mommy and daddy fight about? And of course, some of the kids would say things that mommy and daddy would not want them to say. What's your daddy's favorite thing to cook? Or what's the worst thing your dad does according to your mom?
Tell me what your parents didn't tell you to say.
Yeah, tell me what your parents said you definitely can't talk about today. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Kids are always good there, you know, and definitely worth doing. And then another bunch of folks. You know, we talk a lot about seniors. We talk about the needs of older folks, but give them a voice. You know, I mean, an issue in many towns is empty nesters. You know, and particularly you have folks where they bought a house many years ago. The kids have gone. One parent has died. One spouse has died. They're there by themselves. The tax bills keep coming up. They don't have the retirement income. And you think, but you're living in Montclair in this $1 million house. And it's like, yeah, they bought it for $150,000 35 years ago, you know. And they're basically, the house is in total disrepair. They just are barely getting by, you know. And their neighbors may not really realize the situation or think about that there are those kind of people here. And it gets into issues like having apartments, having senior housing in the towns, you know, and some of the fights that you'll get in some of our towns about we don't want that outside housing in, it's just apartments. And some of them will have limitations that you have to be 65 and older or 55 and older, you know, and it sometimes gives folks who were stuck, they don't want to leave the town where they grew up, the only town they know, but the house is way beyond their ability to handle. And they're very poor in a very rich house, and it gives them another place to live. That's kind of an angle. You know, you may find a story like that where some folks are saying, not in my neighborhood, I don't want a condo complex or an apartment complex for seniors, you know, and this may be the more sophisticated, nuanced angle there, story, that wait a minute, you know, are these folks that have lived in our community a long time but can't handle living where they have been living, and this would give them a place to do it. And of course you typically get yes, but also then they'll have their grandkids come in because they want to go to our schools and not pay taxes. You know, that's the other side that people will say it's just a ploy so the kids can move in, you know, from those poorer neighborhoods and take classes in our community. But the key thing is video is wonderful for people and voices there, and think of that. On the other hand, if the person has nothing to say, if you're a dull politician, asking the school board president, you know, some bland thing, you're going to get a bland answer. Why waste your time? Why do it? Write it in text. If you want to nail them on the record, if you want to get them on the record, great. But oftentimes, if you're going to get, you know, a nothing quote, don't waste the time because it takes much more effort to do it in video. Okay, I'm not going to play this clip. We don't have enough time. But the basic rule is don't move the camera. Don't shoot. Like, you know, it's like there and, you know, and like, well, kids will do it. I don't know how many times you see people say, you know, they're not sure what to shoot of all you in the room, so they kind of shoot all of you like that. And it's like, no, you know, he's not moving those cameras. They're locked down on a tripod for a reason. And if you watch TV, see how often the camera works. Movies, you know, the creepy shots where the camera's going along, you know, in the shadows, and you see the main character walking through a deserted house, and you're kind of like the eyes of somebody else watching them, and there's suspense. You can do that. But in TV news and in most stuff, you don't want to move the camera. You know, if you have to zoom, do it with your feet. You know, don't. Who's got? Let me borrow your cell phone. You know, how do we take pictures on a cell phone? Like that, you know. Hold a glass of water, beer, wine, whatever, up like that, and see if you can hold it without any ripples. See if you can hold it with no ripples. You can't, generally. You know, you simply can't hold it like that without it jiggling a little bit. And when you take a picture, the lens opens and closes for a fraction of a second. And whatever fraction of a second is jiggling there, you know, it's blurry. It won't be as sharp as you would have otherwise. Let me steal your camera. I'll give it back, I promise. You know where I live. So, you know, here's what you want to use. Trust me, I cannot tell you the number of times I've asked students checking out gear, and you want a tripod, right? And it's like, oh no, I don't need one. It's like, okay, you haven't learned. I've threatened them. If you don't take the tripod, I'm knocking your grade down one level, just because you clearly aren't getting it. They do fold up into small packages, and they're small tripods. These things can be great. They can also, because they're that, I can actually put it on things. You know, if you don't have a place, if you're outdoors and need to put it on a tree or something. These are really, it's a really neat bendable thing. Pass that around a little bit. See what I mean by it. The bending is much more until you touch it, you're like, oh, that's neat the way it works. It will make your shot look professional. This is the smaller ones here. It's actually called a Gorilla Pod. I think the people that make it, it's a specific brand. But here's the kind of stuff you can do with it. You know. Now don't shoot a movie this way with the camera turned sideways. We get that with students. You know, they shoot it like that. Yes, ma'am.
What's the best way to capture people if you're doing street?
If you're doing street photography, right here. Well, okay. I mean, do the tripod. I'll get there. Just a sec. This little thing here, and I'll pass this around too to play with. This is like $12. Fold it. Fold the ends up there, the other one, same way, and pull it apart a little bit. Yeah. What that does, I've got one mounted here. I want to mount one so you can see it. What I'm handing around there is this little thing right here that pulls up like this. It lets me do that. Now, I've got my smartphone on a tripod. Now it's locked in. And the great thing about this, there are some that are fixed width, and you buy a new case and it doesn't work. Or it counts on you taking it out of its case. And boy, I don't like telling people to take their phone out of their case and have just the bare glass sticking in there. And Apple and Android, Samsung and everybody change the size of their smartphone so often. This thing here, it just pulls up. It's really easy to pull out. And once I sit here and I adjust the tripod, you know, and I get it just the way I want it, the right height, lock it in, turn the camera on, right? I've got a really stable shot, and I can actually talk with my hands, you know, and have a conversation with you because I've got the tripod locked in, the camera's locked in. That, if there's any one thing that will make your videos look better, that's the number one thing. If you don't have a tripod, this gets to your question there. If you don't have a tripod, tuck your elbows if you're doing street photography. Get as compact as you can, you know, brace. If I'm shooting, you know, it's nothing in the world. Lean, you know, well, brace like that. If you're outside and there's just a tree, even bracing like that, you know, I'm fairly stable there. If you're a city council meeting, you know, get down like that. I'm resting on something. The chair in front of you will often do it, but anything not to be holding there. There, for example, outside. Anything to brace on, because the thing is, these cameras take incredible pictures, and even these take incredible pictures. The actual image here at its normal size is about something like 20 by 30, something like that big. You know, if you print it at the full size that's intended for. That's big, right? And if it's really sharp, you may realize, oh, I don't need all this image. This is a sports shot, say. Wow, look right over here. I've got a nice little thing between two players pushing and shoving in my shot of the football thing. I want to crop this image all the way here. If I'm in focus, if I'm on this, if I'm not moving, if it's not blurry, if it's a sharp image, I can crop that photo. And so I take this big image and I kind of go, oh, you know, I've got a couple of things going on here that work. If I'm all blurry, I've got to take that big image and kind of shrink it down to this on the web, you know, to make it not look not quite so blurry there. So it's a huge help for that kind of stuff. Okay, again, don't do, caught you, you know. Okay, the other stuff, think ahead. You've got to figure out where to stand, right? You're at a basketball game. Where do you stand? I know not all of you guys don't want to cover basketball games, but it's the same principle. City council meeting the same way. Oh, I want to see my team on offense shooting the ball. I want to see their faces. Oh, okay, wait a minute. What's the home basket? This is our basket. They're going to be running towards me. Now, don't stand underneath the basket, right? You'll get clobbered. But if you stand like over here, you see them all running down and shooting. And wait a minute, now where's our bench? Oh, our bench is there. And our fans are there. Okay, I've got the coach, the bench, the fans, our goal, everybody's coming this way. This corner of the basketball court is where I want to stand because I can get the coach yelling at the players. I can get the players on the bench biting their nails. I can get the fans jumping up. Just by turning 90 degrees, I've got everything, right? Now, the great defensive play on the other end of the court by my team, sorry, I don't get that. I lose that. You got to make your choices there, you know, it's where to stand. City council meeting, you know, where do you stand? Well, what's going to happen at the meeting? Is it a public hearing? Is it a public hearing and everybody's going to come over to that podium right there and stand? Now, Steve's question would be, am I going to be too close to them? Is somebody going to say, get the camera out of my face? You know, are you too visible? But if the podium is here, he's going to go, great. You know, where's the city council? Here. He can get me, he can pan down a little bit and show the mayor and the council. He's got you guys in the audience applauding. He's great. He can see the faces. If on the other hand, he's set up there, well now he's got my back, right? And he can't get me. But you've got to think in advance what's likely to happen. A couple of examples just to show you. But also, what is going to happen? Is somebody going to make a presentation? You know, where are they going to make it? And are they going to show, is it a big chart? You know, you walk in the room and you see this big easel over here. You kind of go, oh, what are all these drawings of some building? Oh, they're going to use that. Well, where are you standing? If the easel is set up right there beside him, he's like, well, this doesn't work, I can't see it, you know. You've got to think about what's going to happen during the meeting. If it's a public hearing, you know that the part of the fun of it is going to be the people in the audience yelling and screaming, right? The mayor's going to have a stone face. If it's a nasty hearing on a proposed curfew, the mayor probably is not going to want to tip her hand, his hand at all. Wants to stay neutral, you know. So the shot of the mayor is probably going to get you very much, you know. But the person out there, you know, yelling at the mayor and pointing their finger, that's the great shot you want, you know. So just anticipate where things are going to happen and what are the different components, you know. You get caught in these council meetings, they've got a really nasty issue at the top and another one at the bottom. And the people that are all there about the first issue, they're there, they talk, and then they leave. Well, you may not have gotten them on camera. You may need to grab the camera and run outside and get them at their car and say, wait, tell me again, why are you upset about this? You know, you can get them outside the meeting, it's perfectly fine, you know, and then you run back in and hope they haven't voted on anything else, you know, and you're ready to do the rest of the stuff. If there's one technical issue, that's it, lighting. All these rooms are like this. You know, he's on a tripod, mounted high, so he's not getting the lights. He's also got me back here in a dark corner. These lights, if you're not careful, if you have your tripod too low and you're interviewing somebody, you'll see those lights behind them. If he were a little lower and I were standing here, he would get an incredible flare from that light. City council meetings, some of our buildings are old buildings and they love having sconces with lights in them on the walls, and I swear they plan it. So behind the council, you have these really bright lights, and you take a picture of somebody, and the mayor, you can't see the mayor's face, it's all dark, because, I'll put this in my pocket, because the lights are behind him. You've got to think about, where do I go? Okay, that's kind of neutral. I can get a shot of you from there, you're well lit, you know. Windows, is that a window back there? I think it is actually. That's closed. If I were taking pictures of you guys and that were open, the first thing I would do if I came to this room was walk back there and hopefully no one would notice, pull that shade down. It is perfectly fine in a city council meeting to ask the clerk, can I close those windows? I can't take pictures, bad lighting. The mayor will look terrible, you know.
They'll smile and say, no, you can't.
Well, yeah, they often will do that, you know, but here's the main thing. The lights, you want the brightest light behind the camera, not in front of it. And the camera sees things different than you do. The camera looks at the brightest part of the scene and says, Okay, I got to adjust everything so that light looks normal. And that means everything else gets darkened there. So if there's a window behind somebody, it will blow you out. Just like that. Trust me, when you look at that scene, I can see all those people's faces, and that wasn't bright, but I wasn't realizing I was shooting inside. Actually, I didn't take that picture, but whoever was doing it was doing that. You want motion. Obviously, if something's moving, it's much more interesting for video. 3 types of shots, and this is the one I want you to remember. This is the one for photos or video you're going to forget. This makes all the rest of them work. You're going to shoot that most of the time, right? You're going to give me this. And what I want instead is right there, I want the thoughtful close-up shot. That's what I want, is the really tight shots, I want 5 or 6 of those. That gets you to one reason. One reason you would want to spend money on this, the one reason is this. This lens versus that lens. This lens can zoom. I can sit here and I can get you about that tight with this lens from here. You don't know how close I'm getting, so you don't mind, right? If I want to get you that close with this, right, I got to go something like that. You're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? So close-ups, this is the really important thing this will do. So for meetings, if you want to get great shots for close-ups, obviously for sports also, you're on the side of a football field, the closest player is from here to there, and you're going to look about that tall in that image. For sports, you've got to have a longer lens. Yeah?
So this is a key point for me, so that would answer the question. Last time someone told me all you needed was an iPhone, and that'd be the best to start.
For shooting sports?
Well,
Yeah.
anything.
For shooting sports, no. Because for shooting sports, you look at the sports photographers, they've got that huge 400 millimeter, $2,000 lens that they even have to sit it on a pole that's so heavy in front of the camera, because that lets them zoom in incredibly tight there. So yeah, what you could do though, you don't have to spend that money. There's a whole bunch of point and shoot cameras that have they're called a super zoom, and many of them have a 20 power zoom. I've tried one. It's about $400, I think now, $350 or $400 for one.
I think they're up to about 40x now.
Yeah, you can actually, I think there's a 60 time even. But yeah, if you can get a 40 power, you have to use a tripod because it will shake. It will magnify your shake.
No matter how steady you are.
But I use an old Casio that had a 20 power lens, and for lacrosse and soccer, I was shooting a big, huge field, and you could get pretty good shots from a long distance away. But you're gonna need, for sports like that, you're gonna need to zoom. Yeah, your iPad won't zoom. Heather? Okay, but the close-up, that's the one you're going to miss, and the close-up makes everything else work. Because when you can, if you didn't see that, if that's your only shots, that's kind of interesting, but that's what lets you see, oh, you see something really different here than you saw there. It's just a very different thing. There is something else, rule of thirds, very quickly here. You don't take a picture of somebody dead center. Look at classical art. Look at all kinds of paintings and everything. Generally, the most interesting points of the photo are here, 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 and here. That's why they call it the rule of thirds. You divide the screen into 3 parts here and 3 parts there, and this is where you want to put the most interesting things. He's looking to the side. Give him room. Give him room in the direction he's looking. This is nice because all 3 of these things actually hit something interesting there. When you're trying to decide, though, where to set somebody up, that's generally where you want to go. The child's looking out this way, give it some room. Now, cropping is a taste thing. You can have your own feeling as to how to crop. But generally, setting things up that way, using that rule of thirds is going to make your stuff, it almost always looks more interesting. And we always shoot somebody standing in front of something dead on center. And most of the time those shots don't work. You've got a lot of dull stuff no matter what, right? Framing it helps hugely. Now this is up at the cloisters. This is fine because you also get the outline of the arch, which is what's nice about that shot is the arch, and you show the arch, showing the arches, which lets you get a close-up and the long thing. Time and again, you got shots of buildings. Put a little something around it. There's nothing wrong with that landscape shot there of the beach scene. But the sky, there's nothing in the sky anyway. Putting the little trees there, putting that little railing there, and particularly putting the person in it, I've got some sense of scale. I kind of have some idea. Without him, I'm not as clear how big, how high this is. You know, kind of probably know, but I'm not sure. Putting him there, I know exactly how tall it is. You know, but it makes what otherwise is just kind of a dull landscape shot. You know, if I'm shooting you guys in the classroom, if I'm really trying to do it fancy, if I'm shooting you, I might try to cheat and go right between the two of them, and they're going to be out of focus. You're in focus and they're out of focus. You've seen those shots, right? It just makes it a little more interesting, you know. The composition is a little more interesting. And then think, moments. What's going to be the key moment? The council is going to vote, right? And what you're probably going to do is, if you don't think, oh, the clerk's going to announce what the vote is. Let me take a picture of the clerk. No. The people in the audience that testified, mom and daughter that are holding hands and, you know, grimacing, waiting on the vote, that's the shot you want. And then what happens once the vote is announced? You know, people in the audience. The mayor probably isn't going to be your shot, in which you may say, the city council Tuesday night is they voted for something. It's like, well, no. What's the audience reacts there, you know. That, the end of a football game, what's going to likely happen? Where is the action going to be? The players of the winning team are going to run toward the bench. Yay, right? Oh, so let me kind of cheat over here, so I'm kind of behind the bench and they're running toward me. So I've got that great shot, you know. Just think, you know. Oh, you know, the council meeting there. Graduation shots. Now this, getting the planes is a bit much. That's a really incredible shot. But they did that. They time it, of course, to have the planes come over at exactly the time they throw the hats. But that's kind of unusual. But you got a graduation shot. If you've got a graduation shot, they're going to toss the tassel to the other side, maybe, you know, and then they officially say, you're graduated, and they throw the hats in the air. That's the moment. Just kind of get there and realize where you're going and think ahead, what's happening. This kind of thing particularly, though. What's going to be the emotional moment, you know? It may be after graduation. It may be after they're filing out, getting ready to go to the cars. That's when you get the shot, you know, of mom and daughter, you know, dad and son, whatever. You know, you may think, oh, I've already shot graduation. I've already shot the council meeting. And it's afterwards that you get the two activists giving each other a hug. We did it. That's the shot you want, right?